Welcome to Blind City. I had to lose my sight to find my vision.
Are you blind? Are you blind? Open your eyes. They lying every time, so I don't trust men, only trust God. I had to lose my sight before I could see the light.
Welcome to Blind City. See, Blind City is a condition. Crime, racism, and poverty. We have to put the word neighbor back into hood. I had over 31 surgeries and lost my sight and fight to glaucoma. I tried killing myself 3 times in one day, and I was unsuccessful. And then I heard a voice tell me, use your weakness as a strength to inspire and create awareness through Blind City, the podcast. I will address the issues that are plaguing our society, like poor education, that are turning our broken neighborhoods into the breeding grounds of prisons, bootleg preachers, crooked politicians that have my people dancing like strippers in the community. Let's talk about it, or we can flip tables like Jesus. Welcome to Blind City. This is Blind City, the podcast. I'm your host, Langford Cunningham. We are the therapy for these streets. And like I said before, the most dangerous man in the world is a blind man with a handgun. Welcome to Blind City. I had to lose my sight to find my vision. I'm your host, Langford Cunningham. We are the therapy for these streets. I want to send my prayers out to the triple OG, Mr. Sims, my co-host. Everything is going well with his healing, and he should be back for the beginning of the new year. But today we're going to talk about a lot of current events, and I have Brother Ajuma. How you doing?
I'm feeling awesome and amazing, my brother. I pray to Almighty God that he will bless my tongue in the next few moments that I have here today, where I can hopefully say something that will inspire and motivate and educate and empower someone to move to an entirely different space and place in their life by the grace of God.
Exactly. And that's what we hope our podcast is doing for the community. Let's get right to it, Brother Ajuma. Let's talk about some of these current events. We had a certain NFL coach of the Oakland Raiders. He had some past emails that, sometimes you reap what you sow. Had some past emails, and he had some racial statements in some of these emails towards gay people, African Americans, talking about the size of a certain guy's lips that works also inside the NFL industry. And it seemed like these emails have came back and haunt him, and he was fired. Brother Ajuma, why are we still dealing with race in this country?
Well, Dr. W.E. Du Bois said that the problem of race was the problem of the 21st century. The problem of the color line was the problem of the 21st century. And unfortunately, due to the miseducation or the educational system that supports racial biases, racial polarization, racial separation, is going to create that kind of understanding, thinking, and mindset. So we're going to continue to have these biases. Unfortunately, this country is at the crossroads. It has the potentiality to do great things and really be a symbol for the world. However, because it can't get past its racial biases and it can't get past its racial positions, then it remains stuck, almost in like a frozen tundra, that it can't make progress because of these racial biases.
And we also seen on the border, the American borders, the people, the U.S. Border Patrol with the whips on horses and whipping the Haitian people. I mean, are we going back to the 1950s?
Well, I don't know if we're going back. I don't know if anything has really changed. When you look at the prison to pipeline, how the educational system in this country has failed minorities, people of color, particularly Black Americans, and how there are studies that showed the prisoner pipeline to be a very viable reality for those in America, the corporate institutions and corporate entities that benefit from these free labors. So I don't know if we're going back to it. I think we're still where we are. There's a sister. Oh, forgive me. I can't think of her name right now, but wrote a book on race, and I'll think of it in just a few moments. Very very powerful book. Uh, the book was written probably 5 years ago. You would think the book was written 5 minutes ago. And the same thing with Carter G. Woodson. He said, whenever you control a man's mind, you control his behavior. You don't have to tell him to go to the back door, for he will go without even being told. Carter G. Woodson wrote that book in 1926. You would think the book was written 5 minutes ago, because the same systems that were in place to support racist institutions and to support racism are still in place to this day. So in essence, the game has changed, but the names have changed, but the game stays the same. And so it's the same soup warmed over all over again.
Correct. Right. The game has changed, but the players remain the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And understand too, Brother Cunningham, this is not me speaking from a victim position. You know, anyone who looks at this podcast may say, wow, man, this guy, he doesn't see anything right with America, that everything about America is wrong. Well, there's some really good things about America. That there really is some good things. However, for people of color, we've been punished by these systems here in America. So our reality is very, very different from other ethnic groups and from white Americans. And so, you know, it is what it is. It's just our particular reality. We understand it. We're not crying foul. We understand what we have to do, and we're putting steps in place to create a different reality for ourselves. So when I speak, I'm not speaking from a position of a victim. You know, I'm speaking from a position of a realist who understands the reality of our particular plight and our situation. And many of us in the conscious community who are culturally conscious are putting steps in place to create an entirely different reality for ourselves.
You're right. And we're also seeing with our athletes and our entertainers, it seems like they're influenced, but they're using their influence in the wrong way. Like they will sell us their shoes. They will sell us their cars, their clothes, their alcohol. But very few are selling us a better education in our communities, Brother Ajuma.
Absolutely. Well, when you think about it, Brother Cunningham, it actually works against the system. You have to understand there are many principles that Malcolm X espoused during the time that we had him here. And one of the things he would always say is that one man's rise is another man's fall. You got to understand that the same person who didn't treat you right back in the day is not going to teach you right today. And so, you know, the oppressor is not going to give you the tools to liberate yourself. You're going to have to find and claim those tools yourself. And so the system works for them. It just doesn't work for the vulnerable population. In our case, Black Americans, the African Americans, it doesn't work for us, but it definitely upholds the system. You know, we're talking about systems. We're not talking about a particular individual. We're talking about a system in place that supports the system of racism, white supremacy. And again, I'm not speaking from a position of being a victim. We're talking about systems. And that's one of the things that Dr. Carter G. Woodson talked about. He said that the faces may change, but the game stays the same. So that's a whole different level right there.
So let's get to some strategies and solutions, because, you know, we can identify what's wrong with some of our communities all day. What are some strategies and solutions that you may want to talk about that can help some of these broken families in these communities and help the people stop being consumers and learn how to be producers?
Well, I think that's a very powerful question. That's an excellent question. And that question can be talked about till the cows come home. But one of the things that, as a mental health specialist and provider, one of the things that I want to just say is that I want to hold my book up, not because I want to sell the book, but because I think the book is a very, very powerful tool. The book is called 101 Proven and Effective Strategies for Empowering Black Boys. You have to understand, you don't know what you don't know, or we don't know what we don't know. until we read it or we get educated. And this book here has 101 different strategies that will empower your son, your daughter, and the family. Uh, I'll be real brief. Just one strategy. Black boys must have an African centered cultural identity in order to have a foundation upon which to stand. Just give them confidence in their race and their ability to compete on a higher level. Scores of media images and Hollywood portrayal of black males speak to the critical need for them to develop an African centered identity. Well, if you don't know who you are, you don't know where you're going. And that's why history is so important, knowing who you are, knowing where you came from, because it creates a whole different reality in terms of where you have the potential to go. I want to share another book called Understanding the Crises of the Black Male, a handbook on raising black boys to be responsible black men. These are powerful tools, not because I'm trying to sell books, but because these are realistic strategies. I've been in private practice for over 25 years. God has blessed me to touch the lives of over 50,000 young people, families, individuals, either through personal mentoring, or either through clinical counseling, et cetera, et cetera. And so these books is a compilation of these strategies that I've garnered over 20 years, and they're put in the book, and the books are also audio books too. Also, too, Brother Cunningham, I want to give you this and just jump in anytime you need to. I put together a poster, and it's called 10 Strategies for Empowering Black Boys. I want to hold it up too. And again, you can go to my website, ajumamohammed.org, O-R-G, Ajuma Mohammed. And this poster here should be in the bedroom of every young boy in America. In fact, this poster is really all over the world right now, but it still needs to be in other schools. I'm going to run through them real quick. Again, you jump in whenever you need to.
No problem.
Number one, black boys should develop and maintain a healthy relationship with their creator. I don't care what your religion is, you can't argue with that. It just says you're putting the supreme being, you're putting God first and foremost. Number two, black boys should honor and always respect their parents. The Bible and the Holy Quran tells us that respect your parents so that your days are longer to the earth. You should always do that. Three, black boys should embody greatness in everything they do. Notice that I'm saying black boys, but these same principles work for black girls and they work for any ethnic group. But again, we're talking about black boys because that's my area of specialty. Number four, black boys should take pride in their history and their culture. Again, we just spoke to that. When you know where you've been, it tells you where you're going. It gives you a roadmap. Number five, black boys should empower their community through leadership and service. It's all about being a positive example and being a role model. This becomes a catalyst for change, and it empowers others to let them know what they have the potentiality to become and what they can be. Number six, black boys should be role models in their community. Everyone, I don't care who you are, can be inspired by somebody else. And so when you have positive role models in your community, teachers, educators, community activists, leaders, doctors, et cetera, it creates a certain kind of synergy in your community and lets you know what you have the capacity to become. Number seven, black boys should honor, respect, and protect the black woman. Too often, our black girls and the black woman is disrespected, and we couldn't exist if we didn't come from the womb of a woman, and that speaks volumes. Number eight, black boys should work to establish an economic foundation in their communities. I heard one of my good brothers, Dr. Amir Ali, said that any particular group that cannot defend itself or provide food, clothing, and shelter for themselves, it leaves you open and exposed to other groups and people to come in and exploit you. And that's what we see in so many urban communities or black communities where other ethnic groups have come in and have profited from their goods and services. And it leaves us in a very vulnerable position where others can take advantage of us. And that's not a good thing. Number nine, black boys should travel internationally, better understand their place in the world. As you know, Brother Cunningham, I've been blessed to go to 60 different countries throughout the world. And I'm telling you, everywhere I go, I see people of color, and it's very refreshing. And it lets you know also, too, and follow what I'm saying, it lets you know the devastation of the slave trade, how black people were parceled out to Peru and Colombia and Venezuela and Panama and the Dominican Republic and all those different places over there where you see people that look just like you and I, and it's just powerful and it's resounding. And even if you go to Brazil, there's over 80 million blacks that live in the country of Brazil. But again, if you don't travel outside of America, you'll never know these things. And the last thing is black boys should love themselves. At the basis of everything should be love. When you love yourself, then you treat others with dignity and respect because you love yourself. When you hate yourself, you treat others with disdain and disrespect and disregard. And so that's why the basis of self-love is so important.
And that's what we're seeing now in the community, the disrespect. There's no self-love in our community dealing with our youth. That's great, Brother Ajuma. I hope the people took notes. I hope they take time and go to this YouTube channel, Blind City, the podcast, and look at it again and take notes again. If you have a young black male or young black girl that you're raising inside your house and you feel like there's no hope, you really don't have the money to get to someone that can help you with your children, Brother Ajuma just laid down 10 strategies and solutions to help improve your relationship with your child and help your child survive inside these inner cities. We'll be right back. We're going to take a break and quit letting these drug dealers raise your kids in these Crips and Bloods. BlindCityThePodcast.com.
Humility is not thinking less of yourself, it's thinking of yourself less, and you do that by go serving other people.
Yes. But we got a lot of people serving these dogs and cats. They got pet stores, they got pet hotels, they got pet cemeteries, they got everything for the dogs and cats, and you can't get a homeless person a piece of bread.
Please share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Blind City the Podcast.
BlindCityThePodcast.com. Brother Ajuma, Langford Cunningham. Let's get right to it, Brother Ajuma. If some people may look at this and say, well, my son's not going to pay attention to that. My son's not going to hang a poster in his room. What does this man know? He don't know my struggle. What would you say to that, Brother Ajuma?
I would say a lot of things to that. I would say that I've been a community activist and a servant and a mental health specialist for the past 30 years. I would also say that I go to approximately 15 to 20 funerals every year of young black boys, young black males who didn't listen or who parent didn't think that their child needed a mentor, a therapist, or someone to provide them proper guidance and direction. So I go to 15 funerals every year, and it's nothing more disheartening than to go to a funeral of a young person who had his life in the balance, who had every opportunity to go in a whole different direction, but they fell short through a senseless murder or through where they were victimized or they were a part of a gang, a misguided young group, and they crossed the line. I have so many young people that I work with, Brother Cunningham, that made bad choices. And I tell people all the time, you can send your child to the best school, they can have the best teachers, but that is what is happening in the classroom. How does your child, or how does your son respond outside of the classroom? This thing called life is the biggest test or testament in terms of where your child will end up in life. How do they deal with peer pressure? How do they deal with peer acceptance? How do they deal with personal direction in their life? So every child is one decision away from throwing their life away. And that's not to echo the sentiment of doom and gloom. I have just seen young people who went to school, they made really good grades, they came from great homes, and they made a decision to get in a stolen car, or they made a decision to smoke some drugs, or they made a decision they got a young girl pregnant, or they made a decision to drop out of high school, drop out of college, and their whole life turned around from that point forward, and they were never able to rebound. So I sincerely believe, regardless of your parenting position or disposition, your child is always one decision away from throwing their lives away. And you have to understand, because they're immature. You know, they're just getting out into the world, understanding life or trying to understand life. And so, you know, that's a very different playground for them to operate under and get it right. And so that's what I would say to those parents, that, you know, your child is one decision away from throwing their life away. So the more mentors, the more positive role models, the more positive influencers that are in that child's life, the more likely they are to succeed and do okay.
Well, what I used to tell the kids in juvenile detention when I had my sight, I said, you're going to wait all day if you're waiting for life to adjust to you. We have to adjust to life. And that's what I used to tell them in JDC. Brother Ajuma, let's talk about the history of you and I. I've been a big supporter of you. I am a graduate of your mentorship. A lot of people don't know this. You and I go back over 20-something years, and you have seen my development. It's because of you is where I'm at today. You were part of my success along with my mother and father. And I would tell these kids out here, if you don't have that great of relationship between your parents, make sure you have someone in the community that's doing things right. When I say right, they not breaking the laws. They making an honest living, and they have a plan for their life. We all know if you hang around 5 successful people, you will become the 6th. But if you hang around 5 gang members, you will become incarcerated or dead. What you think, Brother Ajuma?
Well, I think your summation of what you just said is 1,000,000,000% accurate, 100% emphatically accurate to spot on. That's number one. Number two, I thank God for the opportunity to be a part of your development, your evolutionary development. Every one of us, each one of us can be inspired, motivated by someone or somebody. And we are the average of the 5 people that we are around. And so I thank God for the opportunity to come into your life. And this is really how you get blessed, because I came into your life, I motivated you and inspired you. And now you're inspiring people all over the world through this Blind City, the podcast. I mean, if this is not karma personified, I don't know what is. You know, it's like when you water a plant, you plant a seed and you water it, and it comes back tenfold. And so this is beautiful. And really, this is what you call achieving immortality. What do I mean when I say immortality? What I mean by that is that my spirit now lives in you, and your spirit lives in others. So my spirit is deposited in you, and now you're depositing that same spirit in others. And so our community continues to grow. It continues to be enriched. It continues to be empowered. And that's a very, very beautiful thing. So the law of nature says that when you do good and you help others, then it comes back full circle. And it has a riveting effect, a residual effect everywhere. And the same thing with the law of negativity, that if you do negative things to negative people, it has a way of coming back to you also in the worst kind of way. So I want to be on God's side. I want to be a blessing. You know, I want to be a blessing to others. I want to empower others. I don't know how long I have to be here, but I hope when it's all said and done, that's my legacy. One who has empowered others, not just in the United States, but around the world.
Thank you, brother. Let's talk about real quick. You and I were having a conversation, and I think you were doing a study when you were telling me about the young infants, young black babies that are in daycare that were having problems at such an early age with discipline. Can you elaborate on this?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've been in private practice as a mental health specialist almost 30 years. And early on in my practice, I used to get referrals from caseworkers or social workers for young men who were probably 14 to 15 years of age, which is a very tender age, very vulnerable, highly influenced age. And then as years passed, still been in private practice, I started getting telephone calls from caseworkers of young people who was 4 years old, 4 years of age, or 5 years of age. And I'll never forget the first time that I got one of those calls. I was shocked. I was completely shocked. And I thought that I misheard what the caseworker said. So when she said that the young man was 4 years old, I immediately responded by saying, "Did you mean he's 14 years of age?" Or when they told me he was 5, did you mean he was 15 years of age? No, no, no. The caseworker said he's 4 years old. Oh, no, no, no. He's 5 years old. And I'm thinking in the back of my mind, oh my God, really? Really? That is unprecedented and just unfathomable. But all I'm saying is that when children don't get that love, that nurturing, that emotional support, they hurt others when they go to school, and they have no regard on how they hurt others.
You're right. And that's really sad. That's really sad because we see a lot of this inside the family courts, parents using their kids as shields in relationships that turn into situationships. And the ones that really gets damaged in this situation are the children. It's the children. And I just wish we in the community stop using these kids and putting them on the front lines of your bad relationship with the baby daddy or the baby mama. The kids are the main priority. So I just hope a lot of parents out there can be cordial to get along enough to see their child succeed. Because if you don't, you're already sinking the ship. You're already sinking the ship with the bad behavior between you, the baby daddy, and the baby mother. It affects the child's growth and decision making as they get older. They become bitter, they become angry, and then they leave outside the house and they find love in the strip club or the gangs.
So it's very, very important that our young people get the proper guidance and nurturing. And it all starts through breastfeeding. It starts through that emotional, social, and psychological connection that is essential and imperative to a child's development. That when you grow up in a warm, nurturing kind of environment where love is where you're surrounded by love, you will tend to take on that persona or that kind of personality. And when you grow up without that, you'll tend to be very angry, very bitter, have a low regard for others, and become a very problematic person because it started at birth. And so that's why we as parents have such a critical role in the development of our children. So visit my website, www.ajumamohammed.org. You can get some of these strategies and other additional information along with resources to help you and your family. All health begins with mental health. God first. And thank you all for listening.
And thank you, Brother Ajuma. BlindCityThePodcast.com.
If you found this content helpful, please share this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Blind City the Podcast. You can find us on all social media platforms.
BlindCityThePodcast.com.